Bill, welcome to the Razor's Edge.
Thank you.
So we've had 18 months in isolation. Have you guys come out of that okay?
Yeah, completely. I don't think any of us have got much to complain about. It's just been a weird time. Some people have been, dreadfully unlucky. In fact, far beyond unlucky. So, I think it would be kind of in poor taste if we were to, moan about the last year and a half. I'd say the initial phase of it wasn't even that bad, really. We probably did need a break, so it was kind of an enforced situation, which was kind of welcome. It was only a few months down the line that you started to see, some darker elements to what was happening.
Yeah. It's good to hear you came out of it okay as a band. So, and you've kept yourself busy. You had the Despicable EP out last year. You've got Torn Arteries coming out in a couple of weeks. Are both products of being in lockdown, or were these planned in advance?
No, everything was done way in advance of the pandemic. The final mixes were completed several months before that, in fact. So, we've been sitting on this album for about 2 years.
Wow.
And Despicable was done in the same session. It's really the leftovers from the album, and it was intended as a release for after the album, but the label decided to switch because naturally enough they didn't feel confident about releasing the album when we couldn't tour to support it.
Yeah, that makes sense. From a business point of view, I guess from the label that makes sense.
Yeah, I think most of us know this. Labels are more cautious than ever. They tend to rely on conventional wisdom. They don't like to take risks because it's a pretty strange time to be running a label for lots of reasons. Yeah,
absolutely. So I've been listening to Torn Arteries for the last week, and I'm loving it as an album.
Cool.
And I would say every Carcass album is a progression from the last. You never stand still, and to use AC/DC as an example, who churn out the same sounding album again and again, you can never say that about a Carcass album. So is that a focus of your songwriting, so that you don't recover the old ground?
Yeah, but it's something we didn't really ever talk about or plan. It just started really early on for us. When we did the second album, Symphonies, we didn't really ponder the situation, but afterwards it was quite clear we'd made a few steps between those records, The first one, to many ears, was completely unlistenable, and then Symphonies of Sickness comes out, and we just appeared to have improved a lot. I don't know if we really had, but it's certainly a different kind of record. And then you get to Necroticism, and that's an even bigger leap. So I guess that kind of, set things in motion for us, so it's always been that way.
Yeah, and despite that, every album, including Torn Arteries, sounds distinctly like Carcass.
Yeah, I believe so. I don't think you need to be too self-conscious when you're writing material. In terms of worrying, does this sound like us? I mean, of course it's going to sound like you if it's the same people, and this is a long-established band.
Yeah.
So I don't really feel like a band in opposition should be too nervous to bring in a few new elements to the music. Otherwise, there isn't really a lot of point in making a new album.
Absolutely, and you see on the internet these days, you got the old school fans who say, "Well, modern day Carcass doesn't sound like Recapitulation, Symphonies."
Yeah, that's true.
How do you respond to fans who dismiss your later work because it doesn't sound like the earlier work?
I wouldn't really respond to them at all. I mean, they're obviously in a completely different headspace from the one that I occupy. Expecting a fellow who's middle-aged to try and replicate something he did when he was 17 or 18 is just unrealistic at best.
Yeah, that's fair enough. To touch on the album and the artwork, it's very distinctive. You've got the vegetable shaped like a heart, which you've put an animated GIF out on the internet, which time lapses it rotting. It's it's another element of the album that's completely unique but very distinctly Carcass. So, who came up with the concept for that art?
Well, that would have been Jeff for sure. Dan and myself had really no involvement in that at all, and we can't take any credit for it. So I don't know how long it took. I guess at some point in the latter stages of recording or even mixing, Jeff was in touch with his Polish artist friend.
Yeah.
And by the looks of it, it could have taken quite some time to execute this.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was completely finished when it was presented to us. So it was just all systems go after that.
Yeah.
Or at least it would have been if we didn't have a pandemic.
Fair enough. Yeah. So, well, obviously Jeff's involved. Do you have a deciding yes or no vote when the artwork comes in to say, oh no, I don't think that suits?
Yeah, in theory, if for example, if he'd come up with something that Dan and I really hated, of course, you know, I mean, for most things in this band, there's kind of a vote thing going on. You know, say in the past when a tour's been offered to us, if one person's saying, "Oh, I don't think that's such a good idea," and the other two are gung ho about doing it, then we'll do it. So this could have been one of those situations, but it didn't need to be, because whatever our different tastes in visuals might be, the one thing we could all agree on was that we didn't want a safe, generic metal album cover.
Yeah. And you certainly haven't got that with this one, I think.
Hopefully, yeah.
So I wanted to look back a little bit to 2008 and when you originally reformed. At the time, when asked about recording new material, you were quoted as saying, "I would be very surprised if that would really happen, but never say never." Obviously, we're 2 albums down the road from that now. So, what convinced you to change your mind on recording new material?
Essentially, I didn't really have to change my mind, because as the last person to get on board with the reunion, I felt like in for a penny, in for a pound. I just couldn't understand the mentality of coming back and doing reunion shows, but only playing old material with no kind of way forward for this.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a cool thing to do for a couple of years, but essentially we were locked into that situation because of Michael and Daniel's commitments to Arch Enemy.
Yeah.
They made it clear from the outset that they had no interest in being involved in a new Carcass album. So it was only when they stepped away from the band that Jeff and I had an opportunity to discuss it. Like, you know, it was a case of, are you up for this? And the answer was yes. So, you know, off we went.
Brilliant. So having gone through 2 albums now, two sets of new music, plus your EP, obviously, as well, is it a step you're happy you took after the Reformation to come out with the new music? Completely.
I think otherwise we wouldn't be here. I think after a couple of years of doing that reunion stuff, it would have just become a bit shameful, you know, to just keep hammering away like that. I've said this before, it was very much a fork in the road. It was either, in my eyes anyway, it was either break up or make new music. So yeah, I'm glad we chose the latter, obviously.
Yeah, and so are all of we.
Well, hopefully most people.
So that reunion tour, it took you a while to play the UK. You played pretty much everywhere else before the performance at Damnation Festival. So was that planned to round out your reunion tour at home, or is that just a coincidence of booking?
Well, I have very little to do with this kind of thing. I reckon a lot of that would be between our agents, you know, whether it's our agent in Europe, and I say Europe, you know, he's based in Germany on the mainland, obviously, so UK wouldn't really be a priority for him.
Yeah.
And then obviously we have an agent in America, likewise. So yeah, it's just, I hate using this kind of phrase, but you know, larger territories getting priority. Oh God, I feel sick just saying that. It sounds crap. But yeah, I think there was some of that going on. But for me, there was an unexpected positive with this, because yeah, I was chomping at the bit to play here at home, you know. Yeah. But by the time we finally got round to it, we were in better shape. So I'm kind of glad about that, because the early festivals we did when we reformed, I was just not ready. It probably took me about 6 months to get even close to being in the right zone.
Right, yeah. back to that Carcass fighting fit, I guess.
Yeah, because I mean, I could play the stuff, but it's hard to explain. You know, there's different levels to it. You know, like you kind of, it's okay, it's approximate. You know, and then you get you know, when you're all kind of in playing shape, you realise, oh Christ, there's another level I can get to where this is a lot tighter, and you know, my soloing is more in the pocket, and all the kind of things, and just how tight you are with the drums, that kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're returning to Damnation Festival again this year. This is the third time you've played the festival, and obviously the pandemic's had a hand with you stepping in to replace Pig Destroyer as headliners. So, what's it like returning there? Isn't it? And is the festival special to you, considering you return every few years?
Yeah, well, it's certainly special to me. I mean, you know, a lot of the gigs that we've done, you know, you've got vague memories, sometimes almost no memory of them. But the first Damnation I remember quite clearly. It was quite a big moment, at least for some of us. And I just remember really good vibes. My mum came to that gig, so I guess that's another reason why I remember that one. You know, it's kind of exceptional.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, also I just love Leeds and Yorkshire in general, so any excuse to get up there.
Absolutely. And we'll see you there again this year. So before we end, I want to quickly focus on yourself today, away from the band. I've seen you in both Firebird and Gentleman's Pistols over the years. Both bands very different from Carcass. Is going on those radically different directions something you enjoy doing? Yeah,
massively. Yep. Yeah, it's just nice to stretch yourself a little bit. I think, you know, for most of us, you're going to have one thing that you focus on. And in my case, that's Carcass, obviously. It has been for a number of years. But it is nice to do something different that takes different elements out of your playing and your musicality. And, you know, every group has got its own thing going on, you know. Yeah. Each band, in this case, has got a slightly different tuning, different kind of setup. I like playing other people's stuff as well, because, I mean, not all of it is going to be immediately natural to you, you know, so you've got to do some learning. So it just kind of expands your vocabulary in some weird way when you sit down and learn other person's tunes and get into the nuances of the riffs and stuff. Yeah.
And does that feed back into your writing when you come to write a Carcass song?
Indirectly, it would, for sure, as any music would, like the music I listen to at home. I mean, some of it stylistically couldn't be further away from Carcass, but it does kind of creep into how you approach music and how you critique your own stuff. I think if you really had tunnel vision at this stage in life and still only listen to really intense metal, that's cool in a way, but you know, it's not. It doesn't give you a maximum perspective.
Yeah.
I do wonder how much variation you would get happening and how strong your critical faculties might be.
Absolutely. So Firebird you put to rest a few years ago. But will we see the return of Gentleman's Pistols anytime soon?
Yeah, we've been talking about making a record. There's a bunch of demos knocking around from years back. So, yeah, I don't know quite when this would be, but the main man, James Atkinson, he's definitely keen to kind of block out some time in the studio so he can get to work.
Yeah.
I think it's always fun with that group anyway, but particularly this time around, he's got some really exceptional songs in the bag. You know, so I think it'd be a real shame if people didn't get to hear those.
Absolutely, and I've always loved seeing Gentleman's Pistols play live. So I'm looking forward to you returning if you do return at any point. So.
Yeah, well, fingers crossed. Yeah.
So, in terms of your songwriting, is there any new music on the scene at the moment that inspires you to write?
No, quite frankly, because I just don't keep up. I don't even attempt to. I'm not really an online person. Yeah. The other guys in the band, Jeff and particularly Dan, they do keep up to some degree.
Yeah.
I mean, I listen to music all day, every day, but I'm just more kind of living in the musical dark ages. You know, there are certain things I that I kind of, without being able to crystallize it, there are certain things I look for, listen for in music, and I don't hear that as much in a lot of today's stuff. Not to say that, you know, there aren't some killer players out there, because there are. I mean, I've seen plenty when we've been doing festivals and stuff. I mean, there's some real monster players. It's just not the kind of thing that, away from that environment, I would want to listen to.
Yeah, it's fair enough. So it's hard to believe now that we're 9 months already into 2021. What does the future look like for you and Carcass and your other projects? What are your plans over the next 18 months?
Well, we scarcely have any as it stands, just because everything's so uncertain. Obviously, there are a couple of things in the diary for next summer, you know, a couple of festivals in Europe. That would be great if it comes off. But, yeah, I think it's just a little bit too early to have a lot of stuff planned, especially since that Behemoth Arch Enemy tour capsized a while back.
Yeah,
I'm sure the promoters would like to reschedule it sometime next year, but I've not heard much about that.
Fair enough. So, Bill, it's been a pleasure talking to you, and I will catch you at Damnation, if not before.
Absolutely. Nice one. Cheers, Tim.
Thanks for listening. Make sure you keep up to date with future episodes by subscribing to our channels. For more information on this podcast, or for all the latest music news, reviews, interviews and more, head over to our website, www.therazorsedge.rocks.